This lesson is a pre-teach of Chapter 7, and we're going to do a brief review of some algebraic simplifying of fractions and factoring. So number 1, fraction practice, 42x over 7. If you want to simplify this fraction into lowest terms, we're going to reduce the numerator and denominator by 7, and I can quickly divide each of these by 7, and I'm left with 6x. Number 2, 36 over 8. I can reduce both 36 and 8 by dividing by 4, so I have 9 over 2, and my result is 9y over 2. Now these are very simple problems. We're going to get into a few that are a little bit tougher. So number 3, notice we have 3x over x. The x over the x's would cancel out, and I'm left with 3. Another option is to use the rules that you learned in Algebra 1. This is x to the first over x to the first. And the division rule says, in terms of quotients, if you have x to the a over x to the b, you can subtract your exponents, a minus b. And that's the same thing here. If I have 3 times x to the 1 minus 1, that's 3 times x to the 0. But x to the 0 is really 1, so the answer is 3. So you can get that using either method. Number 4, 5y cubed divided by y, that's the same as 5 times y to the 3 minus 1, which is going to be 5y squared. Number 5, I have negative 32 over 48, which I can reduce. I can divide both of those by 16. So I have 2, and 48 divided by 16 is 3. And so I have negative 2 over 3. And then I'm going to put the a in the numerator and subtract those exponents, 3 minus 2, and b to the a minus 5. And that's going to give me negative 2 over 3. And then on the top I have a to the first and b cubed. Number 6. I have two options for doing this problem. The first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this as two separate fractions. If I rewrite this as two terms, I can rewrite the 6t over my denominator. Fix that here. So I have 6t over 3 minus 3 over 3. Rules for fractions say that if you have a over b plus c over b, if you have a common denominator, you can add your numerators together, but you can also go back the other direction and separate the two terms. So I have 6t over 2t, which would simplify. The 6 divides by 3, and then 3 cancels. And over here, 3 over 3 is just 1, so I would have 2t minus 1. That's one method. Another method that you can use is factoring. In my numerator, 16 minus 3, the greatest common factor is a 3. I can rewrite that outside of parentheses. If I take 6t divided by 3, I'm left with 2t, and minus 3 divided by 3 is a minus 1 over the 3 that was in the original, and the 3's would cancel. So you have 2t minus 1. So that's your second method. Number 7, you can separate it into two fractions, or you can factor. I'm going to go ahead and factor this. I'm going to go ahead and take out the greatest common factor in the numerator, which is a 3. So then inside I have 3a minus b, and then I still have the 12 on the bottom. And of course the 3 on the outside and the 12 are both divisible by 3. So I have 3a minus b over 4. Okay. Number 8. I'm going to go ahead and factor the numerator. The greatest common factor in the numerator is 35x. So I write 35x, and I divide each term by 35x, and I'm left with 3y minus 1, and then in the bottom I still have 75x, and I can do some canceling. The x's, I can either subtract their exponents or just cancel them out entirely. And 35 and 75 are both divisible by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 75 divided by 5 is 15. So I have as a final answer here 7 times 3y minus 1 all over 15. And I could write this by redistributing the 7 if I chose to. That would be 21y minus 7 over 15. Either of those answers would be accurate. Now, once again, I could have chosen to separate that into two fractions and simplify from there, and that would also work, but I'm going to go ahead and stay with the factoring version that I did here. Okay, number 9. So I have the numerator x minus 3, which I'm going to leave as is. The denominator, I'm going to factor out a 4, so 4 and then x minus 3. And in this case, I'm canceling quantities. The x minus 3 in the numerator cancels with the entire x minus 3 in the denominator. I'm still left with a 1 in the numerator that you can't see, and that simplifies to 1 over 4. Number 10. I'm not going to cancel all of those 10s. You can only cancel factors, not terms. So I'm going to factor each of the numerator and the denominator. So take a 10 out. I'm left with x minus 1 in the numerator and 10 times x plus 1 in the denominator. Notice the 10s are identical, so they will cancel. You cannot cancel x minus 1 and x plus 1. They have to be identical to make any canceling happen. So that is your final answer. Number 11. The numerator is x minus 1. X squared minus 1 is the difference of two squares. That's x plus 1 times x minus 1. If you can't remember how to factor the difference of two squares, you might want to revisit that by doing a search in YouTube videos on difference of two squares. So we have x minus 1 and x plus 1, and the x minus 1 in the numerator will cancel with the x minus 1 in the denominator. I have a 1 in the numerator that you can't see, so I have 1 over x plus 1. Number 12. In the numerator, I'm factoring out the greatest common factor of 8, so I have x minus y. And the denominator, that's the difference of two squares, x plus y and x minus y. Your x minus y's will cancel, and you'll be left with 8 over x plus y. All right, number 13, factoring. So 13, I'm looking for factors that make 16, a negative 16 made from a positive times a negative. And if I look at my factor pairs of 16, I have 1 times 16, and 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. The only way I'm going to get a 6 is using a 2 and an 8. And I need a positive 6, so I'm going to need a positive 8 and a negative 2. So I have z minus 2 times z plus 8. The bottom is the difference of two squares, z plus 2 times z minus 2. My z minus 2 cancels in my numerator and denominator. So I have z plus 8 over z plus 2. Final answer. Okay, last problem, number 14. When I look at the numerator of this, I notice that all three terms have a greatest common factor of 2. So I'm going to factor a 2 out, and I have 2 times the quantity x squared minus 7x plus 12. And down here in the bottom, I have 2x squared minus 11x plus 24. Now, if you go through the process of AC method to try to simplify this, what you'll end up finding out is that this can't be simplified. So what I end up with is nothing that's going to cancel at all. So the final answer here is that it cannot be simplified because the bottom is not factorable. All right, so once you finish watching this video, you'll be completing the assignment that goes along with it, which is page 237, fraction review, 1 through 19 all.